Welcome everyone to another Thursday evening live stream. Bitcoin found some nice support earlier today, so I want to take a look at market structure as well as some of my favorite indicators and strategies across several different time frames to kind of get a view of how things are looking for Bitcoin. As always, I will start zoomed out on the weekly chart just to get a feel for the overall market conditions and work my way into some more degen timeframes, take a look at my current long scalp if the rest hasn't been stopped out by that time. Or by the time we get there rather, and so on. So with that, let's hop on over to the weekly chart here. I know this is getting repetitive for a lot of you, but every week I like to take a look at this and just get an overall view, as I mentioned. And I know it's kind of slow moving because every candle is a week, and I do these every week, and we've been consolidating here for a couple of months now. But it is important to look at, and it's important to zoom out because so many people get bearish so quickly. I can't tell you how many times I saw on Twitter throughout this last couple of months stating that the bull market's over, bear market back on, etc., etc. I really don't think that's the case. Obviously, the market doesn't give a shit how I feel, so anything can happen. But nothing to me looks bad about this chart at this point. You can see I did actually add some diagonal trend lines. I know not everyone's a big fan of diagonal trend lines, but I personally like to keep them on my radar as well, just in case, just as confluence if nothing else. And also, I treat them a lot kind of the same as how I do horizontal levels, you know, looking for swing fails and that sort of thing. But yeah, I know they're not for everybody, but I'm bringing them up anyways. I think horizontal levels and understanding that sort of structure is a lot more important. And this horizontal structure so far is looking great, in my opinion anyways. You know, even the fact that just as we had this consolidation, just where we started our pause in our trend here, we haven't even closed one single candle body on the weekly below this level here. And I have this little yellow line mapped out. We're actually respecting it quite well, and we even wicked down to it absolutely perfectly this week. And honestly, you guys, this is not my higher low structure. I know a lot of people will say that they believe this is the higher low. I think it's premature to say that because we haven't confirmed it because we don't have a new higher high, right? I have our current highest high mapped out with this red horizontal line, and our current higher low is actually this green box here. Not this green line. That's something else I'll go into in a second here. But this whole green box here, in my opinion, is the way I'm looking at higher low structure, because on the weekly, you know, we had this higher low here, which is mapped out, and our next higher low. What's the lowest point between those two? Would be right here, the bottom of that doji candle, basically. So as it stands right now, this is the highest low that had, or the confirmed highest low, I guess, because structure has actually closed above this level. And something that I'm really waiting for, and I know I mentioned this last week, you guys, is if we get a candle body close above this red horizontal resistance line, that's where I'm going to be excessively bullish. Right now, there's a couple things that I'm going to talk about that we have to be a little bit cautious of. I'm going to talk about some targets that nobody wants to hear, and that's myself included. And I don't necessarily think they're probable, but we always got to take a step back, take a deep breath, and not let our emotions get the best of us. So it's always important to be aware of both possible scenarios, right? And like I was just talking to you guys before I started this stream, it's more important to be able to react than predict anyways. So we just need to look out for certain things that we need to watch for in the future, right? So as it stands right now, like I said, we still have this higher low structure. We still have this diagonal support trend line. Even if we lose this diagonal support, we do still have this green box here that could potentially find us some support. You know, even something I'd consider watching for would be a Stuber fib pulled from that higher low to the top of this range. And actually, we got very close to the Stuber fib pocket. And this, I did not actually look at this at all on the weekly chart before doing this. But, I mean, it was front run very slightly. So maybe there's just actually a lot of excitement from the bulls in this market. But that is something that that's quite interesting there. The fact that we came very close to that 786 and then just finding support and carrying on higher. So I know, like you guys know in the channel, in the VIP Discord here, that I am not one for trading the weekly chart, the daily chart, even the 4-hour chart, hell, even the 1-hour chart. I barely trade. For the most part, I'm entering positions on the 5-minute, the 1-minute, and stuff like that. But I do like to zoom out and just kind of be aware of all these potential scenarios just when kind of gathering my bias or things to watch out for, right? So that's absolutely beautiful where we found support there so far. Bringing up a couple of my favorite indicators. I love that this buy trend, I mean, look where we got this buy signal. This thing has been so accurate on the weekly chart. Nailed that sell signal, nailed this buy signal, nailed this buy signal. Really, the only one I see that failed was COVID. This COVID dump we had in the market kind of faked out this indicator. But other than that, it has made absolutely gigantic calls. So something to consider there is that this buy trend is actually lining up right in the middle of that green box that I was talking about with the naked chart. So that's just a little bit of extra confluence, right? If we do end up dropping a little more, just to see the indicator showing support inside of a level of support structure that I'm seeing, absolutely love to see it. As well, we still see these W's trending to the upside. For those of you who have been in this group as long as me, I know for about 2 years now, I've been loving watching these reversal warnings. And they're just kind of helping us point out the trend, right? Even though they are supposed to be reversal warnings, it's just a bit of a warning, but we're noticing the trend that they're showing as well, right? That's more so how I like to use indicators personally. And I just love to see that they're still doing that. So, and we haven't had one from the bottom side in quite a while, but I think it's safe to say that the higher low reversal warning that we see on the weekly is, well, like I said, it's most likely going to be a higher low, right? It would be pretty crazy to just absolutely nuke all the way past this. I know none of us are really expecting that. That being said, guys, one thing that I do want to mention is, let's just say, you know, we drop this indicator support, this buy trend ends up flipping into a sell signal, and let's just say this is all theoretical and it could be a long time away if it even did come true, but let's just map out that higher low support level, make it green. Let's just say in theory we lose that indicator support and we actually close weekly candles below this level. That's where we need to be concerned. At that point, I wouldn't know how to feel about the market. I would need to basically, I mean, I would still be scalping the shorter time frames, but as far as the mid to long-term trend, I would really need to reconsider things for probably a couple weeks until the chart kind of made some new sign of what's about to happen. But something I want to talk about, and this is where I mentioned that I know I'm going to talk about the ugly here that nobody wants to hear, but let's just look back to, this was our all-time high last cycle. Notice we never got a candle body close above that level on the weekly. Now on the monthly we actually did, so I think it's actually quite bullish. But just something to consider there. We did get that little bit of a swing fail, right? We tested above with a wick, no candle body close above, and then seeing red candle bodies closing below. We did technically get this one weekly candle close above this level, but the fact that we had a wick there already just makes that a little bit messy, right? It's just not as clear. It wasn't a clean break above that level. So that is something that I want to have on my radar right now, and something that we need to consider, because if this does turn into some sort of a swing fail pattern and it does push us down below this structure, changing it, and we see that that flip of that swing, that's where things could get quite ugly and very quickly. We're going to have to see what happens in the world economy and that sort of thing. But yeah, this is kind of something that I always talk about as well, you guys, is if this was a 5-minute chart, a 1-hour chart, a 4-hour chart, basically anything other than a weekly chart, nobody would really question the fact that we would pull back to some Fibonacci levels. Myself personally, you guys know I love the 786 and the 886. So something I have to bring to your attention is that if that structure does change and we lose that swing and we start trending to the downside, we have some very low targets to consider. Again, I do not think this is probable. I want to be very clear about that, but it is a possibility, right? And especially if we do end up getting this kind of a move, we have no idea what kind of orders at this point are at these levels. We just those, even the orders, even if we check the heat maps and the liquidation levels and all that sort of thing, I mean, orders can be pulled very fast. If there's a bunch of buy orders just below this green box here, we don't know if some whale just pulls their orders and all of a sudden the order books are very thin and we see some sort of a crazy sell-off. I'm not saying it's probable, but it's possible. So that is something that we have to consider. But obviously, there's a lot of time between now and then. I think it would take some sort of a black swan event. Either the wars escalate, the government decides to throw something else out there that is deemed catastrophic for the economy, whatever. But as it stands, just something I wanted to bring to your attention just in case, because I also felt quite bullish as we reclaimed this structure last market cycle, and then COVID happened and we did dump to the downside. And everybody here would have also thought the 786, 886 fibs seemed fucking ridiculous at that point. And look what happened. We did wick, basically filled that box, candle bodies kind of closing right around that 786, but we did in fact fill that Stuber pocket. So again, yes, it was COVID, it was a black swan event, but it did happen. Whether it was the charts just doing its thing, because again, on a 5-minute chart, this would be totally normal. Just the fact that it's a weekly, it feels absolutely catastrophic and crazy, but it did happen. So that's something we need to consider, is at least a possibility this market cycle. That being said, you guys, this is where things will be a little more lighthearted, obviously. So we have that level, which may still be a swing fail. And that's why I'm not really considering this a higher low yet at this point. But if now that we do technically have this high and this slightly higher high, this is technically our confirmed higher low, right? On just a basic market structure level. And that's why I pulled that Fibonacci, because that's how I do them, right? I pull it basically once a high is broken with a higher high, I pull the fib from the lowest point between the two. And that's why I did that there on the weekly as well. But this is where things change. If we set another higher high here, that's where we now confirm a higher low. And that's where I will actually be moving this support box up at that point, basically. Basically, it would be something like that in that case. And then as long as we hold that trend, that's where I would be looking at finding support. Of course, if this happens, we get a pump up to here, we pull back a couple $1,000s, social media is gonna start shitting their pants again, and all of a sudden it's, oh, the bull market's over again. But really, we have support all the way back down towards these levels if that does happen. And at that point, if we do end up breaking some structure, let's just say we do set that higher high I'm talking about and get something like that, that's where I'd be looking at pulling a Fibonacci again, right? So since we'd at that point have a confirmed higher low, I'd be pulling my Fibonacci from that point and just basically chasing the price. Just kind of wherever the price ends up topping out, I'm just waiting for some sort of a pullback into my Fibonacci pocket, right? So if the price actually looked like this yellow line and followed it, then my fibs would look something like that. So I'd be looking at, well, yeah, and that would basically be anywhere from the 786 down to the full retrace would absolutely be totally normal and healthy in my opinion. But again, there's a lot of sleeps between now and then. I just want to kind of explain to you guys how I'm looking at market structure, and that includes the longer time frames and what to watch for. So unfortunately, yes, that's going to be months away, but it is what it is, right? Zooming in a little bit further, I want to take a look at the 4-hour chart here. We did have some nice structure breaks recently, right? This is the same thing. I'm going to look at structure the exact same. Here's one of those cases where, we just kept setting higher high, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. We lose that level and look at what happens. Just immediately a big dump to the downside. So we lost that structure of higher lows, and that's what happened. On top of that, notice where we got rejected. We came back up to that level, and I know Smallio talks about this in pretty much all his videos as well, as when you lose that swing, it's often retested, and this is a perfect example there. And something else that's interesting is it doesn't always happen, but just as a little added confluence to that type of a setup, just notice what else lines up with it if we pull a Fibonacci. We went slightly higher than the 886, but my invalidation for a Stuber fib is way up here anyways. And we obviously never broke the highs of that trend. So again, just a little added confluence. That swing level is just above the 886. But I mean, if you were entering a short in that 886, 786 area, obviously a beautiful position to be in. Take profit 1, take profit 2, hope for a home run with the rest, taking profits on the way kind of a thing. So yeah, interesting to see how the 786, 886 so often lines up with where a swing breaks like that. So right now, just looking at how the market looks here, when we ended up actually breaking out of that downtrend was right about here. We ended up getting a close above because again, we have this lower low, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high. Look what happens when we break that. We end up pumping to the upside. So we do still have a lot of untested levels down here. That's one reason why I don't want to go full moon boy right now, is because there's absolutely the possibility that, you know, something like this, for example, we ended up losing that swing, right? Let's just do yellow there. So we lost this where we had this higher high, higher high, higher high. We lose that level. It's absolutely possible that we end up getting rejected fairly soon. I'm not really leaning too hard, too aggressively one way or the other. I'm just back in scalp mode right now. But just something to be a little bit cautious of is there is the potential that we climb up to these levels here and end up getting rejected. And again, it would line up quite well with this little bit of structure back here as well. So something interesting there, as well as if we do see a rejection there, it doesn't mean all hope is lost, right? Because really, until we lose these lows, this is where the swing has reversed so far, right? So even if we end up losing this support level, technically speaking, we could still end up testing this fib. It would actually look a little bit different how I normally do it, because I normally include wicks and everything. And my 4-hour chart, you'll notice that I actually removed the wicks, just so you can kind of focus on, again, an idea from Smallio there, just so it's a little bit easier to see where those pivots are happening, where those swings are changing, because it's more so the candle bodies that matter, right? I do include wicks when I'm looking for targets, when I'm looking for entries and that sort of thing. But as far as like changes in direction and actual structure, I care a lot more when it comes to candle bodies closing and stuff like that. So there's a possible we don't actually fill this down here, and that we just, you know, maybe the bulls are too excited, because again, we did technically this little downtrend here. That's why I have this green line as well, right? We did actually end up breaking this because we had a low, slightly lower low. And I know this is micro analyzing, guys. This is going like each immediate swing type of thing. But there was a break of this, which would be the lower high on this very immediate trend here. So, you know, maybe that's all the bears were able to push the price down. Maybe we just end up getting some sort of a pullback and testing a smaller Stuber fib like this. I mean, that's where, again, that's where I'd be looking for those levels on like a 5-minute, 1-minute chart, and taking those scalps, closing half my position very quickly, because let's just say we pulled back right now. Let's just pretend this is all hypothetical, but right now something to watch for. Let's say that since we had this bullish break here, we're looking for some sort of a pullback. Let's just say we end up pulling back to my Stuber fib. I end up getting some sort of a long entry. I am already starting to take profits here as well as here. That's why I have these other fibs mapped out in blue here. So those are my first two targets basically. So if, if all of a sudden, let's say I hit those first two targets and then we get stopped out, that's where, if I hit TP2 I'm definitely updating my stop loss to break even at that point, if not sooner. Sometimes I'll do it after TP1, depending what time of the day, what my plans are for the evening, that sort of thing. But it's important to pay yourself and reduce your risk, right? So that's where having those structured take profits levels is so convenient and honestly just so important. And if you're looking for Stuber fibs on a very small range, like let's say, let's just say this only came up to here and then pulled back. So this Stuber fib was actually much, much smaller like that. And you decide that you want to play this range. You still got to follow those rules if you want to play it the same, right? Yeah, it might feel like, oh, that profit isn't even worth taking it. Well, then there's a good chance that you are still going to end up getting stopped out. That's why those structured levels are there. And they are basically there to map out the range that you are looking to play, because we always want to play the range first. And if we break out of that range, that's where we look for bigger ranges, right? So if you're playing too small of a range and you don't like how small the profits are on those levels, that's kind of on yourself, right? And then you're just trying to play too small of a range, I guess. Wicks on for the weekly, but have them off for the 4 hour. No particular reason. It's just a different chart that I have loaded up, and I just so happened to have the 4 hour loaded on the one that doesn't have the wicks. Generally speaking, I do use wicks. I just find that most people on average probably look at the 4 hour for the health of the market and looking for, reasonable swing trades and that kind of thing. So that's why I wanted to kind of break down, just be able to see those structure levels and those swing closes and stuff like that a little bit easier on the 4 hour. So that's kind of the only reason. So yeah, the 4 hour so far, like I said, still looking good. We've broke a couple different lower highs. Let's just see what the indicators are saying. Actually, the core trend, it tried to flip red there, but now it's flipped more neutral. Something that's interesting with this is, again, I was talking about when I look at indicators, one of the most important things, well, just for myself anyways, just kind of how I like to use indicators, is noticing a trend with them. And this is a perfect example of why I think we might be quite bullish right now. Is if this core trend ends up flipping green here, it means it flipped green higher, right? It's just a higher trending signal flip. Much like back here, we had, let's just say we were green back here, and then we set a lower green support here, and notice it didn't hold. It was, although it was showing support, it's still trending to the downside, right? But look what happens when we had this red signal followed by a lower red signal. Again, just helping point out the trend. So at this point, if this core trend can flip green and bullish once again for more so support rather than neutral as it is right now, I think that would be a very nice sign in the market. And that goes, like I said, that basically goes for every indicator. I'll turn that off and turn on the trend collection, trend dynamic. What do we see here so far? Yeah, a perfect example is we had a higher buy signal. And although it was fairly short-lived, it absolutely got a beautiful pump there before finding a reversal warning there. Then W's, sell signals as well as W's start. Well, actually, that's a perfect double top there. So that's a bit of a red flag, but not necessarily too bearish at that point. But then look what happens. We see a lower sell signal, and look how beautiful of a call that is, just because we're seeing which way these signals are trending, right? So we're seeing a lower sell as well as a lower buy. And that's why we need to be a little bit cautious of this buy signal, for example, because it's lower. So it's still trending down, right? So something to consider there. Like I was talking about trending W's before, we have a W, a lower W. I know thumb case, this will ring a bell for you, because it was probably about 1.5 years or 2 years ago when we started kind of discussing strategies together. And this was one of the first strategies we kind of came up with these indicators, was the trending W's. And just seeing a lower high W like that is such a beautiful reversal warning in that case. It's obviously not going to play out every time, but so often that can work its way into your analysis and just helping you spot when a reversal is coming, right? So yeah, at this point, again, we had a buy signal. It was lower. We had a sell signal that was lower. So, you know, we're starting to see a little bit of resistance here. Like I said, there is reasons to be a little bit cautious at these levels. And yeah, the 4 hour, as far as the indicators, looking a little bit on the bearish side, but we do have to consider a few things. And guys, obviously, you know, indicators are going to give mixed signals and that sort of thing, but we are using them as confluence. Here we have this higher high W, so we have to consider that the trend may be shifting to the upside, but we're seeing a bit of mixed signals, lower buy signal, lower sell signals. The W's on the support side of things also trending to the downside. So a few things to consider for sure. And that's where I personally like to zoom into shorter time frames anyways and look for that sort of thing, and more so structure and Fibonacci's. But I think, you know, you can quite often get beautiful confluence out of noticing this type of thing as well. Zooming right in here. This would be the 5-minute chart. This is something, was I talking? I know I was talking to you guys before the stream about this position. I don't think I went over it in this stream yet. Basically, I took a little bit of a long position. And again, I love scalping. And one of the reasons I love scalping is because, yeah, I missed some great position back here. In fact, I can say from an eyeball, this is very close to a Stuber fib. I say this pretty much every week that I feel like I'm going autistic because I just like spot these things everywhere now. But this is one of those times where, hey, as far as this immediate downtrend here, we could look at this as our lower high. At that point, start looking at pulling a Fibonacci, and look, well, it got front run very slightly, but came very close to the 786 there. Beautiful to see. But as it stands right now, I mean, these green lines, I mapped out these short little lines are basically where I'm looking at those structure breaks, right? So here we have our higher high, lowest point between those two would be down here, which actually lines up quite well with this resistance back here, flipping into support. Yeah, it kind of got a little wishy-washy around there, but really held beautiful support. So that would have been our higher low, and now we have another higher high, so I'm looking at kind of this area as a higher low. I'm just going to map out something like so. So I actually, I could have got in this a little bit lower technically, because I really could have micro-analyzed this, and as we started finding support, notice that, hey, you know, as far as just this immediate pump to the upside here. Just looking that we broke above this little wick here, and look where we ended up pulling back. If we treated this as its own little swing, look where we ended up pulling into. Absolutely perfectly, just kind of wicked slightly below the 786 there and took off. So technically I could have got in a little bit lower, but by the time I noticed that there was basically that we were closing above this peak back here, and I wanted some kind of a position in place since it looked like we were finding support. I took a stab at it, and yeah, it played out. I already closed half my position before the stream, which I was talking with you guys about that before I went live here. And basically, I never had a target in mind. I was just basically, you know, we ended up seeing a little bit of a pump. Wouldn't be too surprised to see a pullback. And just in case it is a full-on reversal, I wanted to pay myself a little bit. And like I said earlier, I treat basically every trade as a scalp first, and then I hope for a swing trade with the rest. So that's where I was willing to close half my position relatively quickly. And from there, I'm just hoping the rest plays out and continues running. Normally at this point, and actually before, I did bring my stop loss up to break even as well, but I actually just loosened that off, which I was talking to you guys about before the stream as well. I'm actually going with an invalidation level of this little swing here. If we pull back into the Stuber fibs or some kind of a swing fail of, says, like I said, again, structure, here's our high, higher high, our higher low would be this point here. That's why I pulled the fib from this level to this level up here, just to make that more clear. I'm going to delete. Let me just get rid of some of my fancy art here. So yeah, that's basically why my Fibonacci is pulled like that. Because we had this high, higher high, confirmed higher low. So yeah, as far as a Stuber fib goes, I really wouldn't be surprised right now to see us pull back a little bit further, just because we have seen, you know, such a pullback already from these levels. But that being said, if we close a candle body above this level here, maybe that's all the correction wrote, because we technically have this low. We did wick below that, so if we get an actual close above this level, could be an early warning sign that this trend is going to reverse a little bit early and not make it to those fibs. I'm not going to add to my position if that happens, just because I don't want to bring up my average entry that much. But I would definitely be considering if we end up getting some sort of a swing fail, or looks like we're finding support in the Stuber fib or something like that. But that's kind of what I'm looking at on the 5 minute right now. Ooh, this is actually looking nice right now. Again, candle bodies closing matters a hell of a lot more than just wicking above. This could still very much so get rejected here. But let's keep an eye on it. How much time do we have? Oh, about 40 seconds until this candle body closes. So we'll just maybe keep looking at this for a little bit here. Clean things up a little bit. We now know why I have these levels marked out and mapped out. If I weren't already in this position, I guess I could technically treat it as a Stuber fib again if we come back to these levels. But if I was looking at a new position in these levels, I'd be looking at closing quarter here, and then hoping the rest runs basically. But as it stands right now, I already closed half. So just going to let her run, stop loss just slightly below my 115. I leave a little bit of wiggle room. But yeah, this is looking nice so far. We could end up just closing back below this. Then I think absolutely we're just going to come back down and test some of these lower levels. But as it stands right now, it at least looks like there's, you know, the market's trying to reverse early here. What are the indicators saying on the 5 minute? Actually, that's interesting. That's nice little confluence too, right? Actually, everything I just talked about on the shorter time frames, for the most part, we have these W's trending to the upside. We did have the a little bit of a fake out, just a bit of a warning more than anything, but that buy signal ended up holding on. Actually, just a beautiful trend there. Still holding as support, so that's something to watch for as well. What else can I see out of this? Zooming out a little bit. You know, if we see, even if we end up dropping this buy trend right now, then obviously we're going to see some sort of a higher sell signal. At least, I mean, depending how crazy it were to nuke, or, you know, obviously we're going to have to see when it happens. But just in a regular condition market, if we end up dropping this buy trend, then I wouldn't be surprised to see a higher sell signal. And at that point, I'd be looking for a higher buy signal as well, right? So our next sell signal on its own, I wouldn't personally take all too serious on the 5 minute, just because, again, it's, yeah, it might be a sell signal. It's a bit of a warning, but the fact that they'd be trending to the upside would be a little bit alarming, I guess. Just a bit of a red flag for taking that signal. What else? I'm actually going to, let's see what actually the auto charting tools are saying. We still haven't seen a higher high come into play yet. Quite often when I'm pulling my fibs, I like to use these as confirmation. Not always. Like market structure is always my number one, and then followed by Fibonacci's and that sort of thing. But even back here, we had another, I can just tell from an eyeball, you guys, and from where these pivots are pointed. I can almost promise you this is a Stuber fib that did play out as far as a short. And here I will show you what I mean real quick. So as far as a Stuber fib setup, let's just say this was our low, right? When we finally managed to break that low, would have been we set this lower low here. That's where I would be looking to pull a Fibonacci. So from the highest point between the two, right? Because we have our low, lower low, highest point between the two is my lower high, and the indicator actually agrees. Pulling the Fibonacci from the lower high to the lower low. Like I said, you can't make that shit up. You just start to see it everywhere once you see it. But beautiful, came right into that Stuber fib, basically right in the middle of it. Our 0.5 fib would have been right here for TP1, and the higher low was basically right at my TP2 fib. So absolutely beautiful there as well, and having the indicators agree with it, that was just a beautiful confluence there. Oh god, Stu's top 5 shit coins. I want to be clear about something when I start talking about shit coins here, because I will. Me personally, I don't follow fundamentals very much at all, and I'm very clear about that every week. That goes for, like, I agree with Bitcoin's fundamentals. I really like Bitcoin. I use it day to day. I understand where it gets its value from and that sort of thing. When it comes to altcoins, honestly, I'm just not much of a fundamental guy myself. I have a few that I like for a few reasons. I'll go into a few of mine, I guess. I will do that actually very soon here. And I want to be clear about something else. A lot of the shit coins that I look at are very small market caps. They are more so for small position size, looking for big reward. You know, when I'm looking at coins with market caps less than $1 million, it's because I'm hoping, you know, at least there's a possibility that it can do 100x, you know, when the market goes, well, full, you know, when it goes full parabola. Things could get stupid, and you could see some low cap coins seeing absolutely explosive moves. So some of the altcoins I'm holding, yes, smaller positions, but just hoping for much larger returns. So I just want to be clear about that, because I don't want people throwing in crazy amounts of money to things that are like a, let's say, a $200 or a $400, $500,000 market cap. Obviously a ton of risk involved in those, right? So, but yeah, as it looks on the 5-minute, Bitcoin's still trending up nicely. We'll see what happens here. I'm actually not looking, actually this is a good example of something that I want to just warn you about. I personally would not consider this a bearish Stuber fib. And I just want to explain that, because I think a lot of people would just place a random Fibonacci and say, oh, if it comes to 786, 886, that's a Stuber fib. I'm shorting the shit out of this. That's not necessarily true, because we don't actually have a loss of a higher low structure before that retrace to that level, right? If, on the other hand, we ended up, you know, let's say we do get something like this and we do pull below this higher low structure that I'm currently watching, that's when I'd be more so looking for a Stuber fib pull, right? And that's where I'd be looking, you know, everyone would start getting bullish as we get near the highs again, but it would just be a classic just a classic bounce or retrace after a structure break. That would not be too crazy to see at all. So at this point, being that our higher low is still at this level, that's the low that I want to hold at this point. If we end up creating a new higher high, then we have a new higher low, right? But until there's some sort of a structure change there, that's kind of how I'm looking at it right now. So bullish until we lose a higher low, basically. That's how I'm looking at it. Oh yeah, I'll definitely check out. Actually, some of those I had a buddy ask me to look at as well. So yes, I will absolutely check those out, and I will let you know when the stream is uploaded here. Thanks for joining. Um, yeah, so let's go into some of the altcoins that I'm holding. I know one that I actually mentioned this in the pro signals. I think it was a couple weeks ago. Actually, I think we were kind of trading in this level. I want to say it was middle of April. I said I would be spot accumulating Solana if we reached the Stuber fib pocket. And just because, it's been one of those good performing, actual decent, a serious market cap, serious project type of a thing. So that's just one of the altcoins that I'm willing to accumulate as well. And I was basically looking for that Stuber fib. And I believe in the pro signals, it actually looked a little bit different at the time. Let's just map out how it was, just because some of you might be wondering about this. I don't know if any of you saw this when I posted it. But basically, Solana, I was looking at something like, hey, we had this low, we had a lower low, and we had a lower low. That means the lowest high was right here. We ended up breaking above that level. That's where I'm considering the structure break and looking for a fib pullback. Here, let me just map that out once more. Would have looked something like that. I would have had a Fibonacci pulled like this. And we actually never quite came all the way down to my 786. It got front run at that point. But eventually, that's where I'm still just chasing the price with the fibs, right? There hasn't been any sort of break in structure to the downside, so my bottom pivot point here doesn't have to change. Pulling my fib, just chasing the price, so there's where we topped out at that point. And look what happens. Eventually, we do get that fib pull. Basically, a perfect fill of that Stuber fib. Bought some Solana at those levels. I never did take any leverage positions there. I just did a little spot accumulation. So I actually haven't been taking profit on the way up either, because I just treat my spot positions a lot different. But if I was looking at that as a leverage position, I absolutely would have been taking profits at these levels. So I'm just going to extend that a little bit. Just curious, how many of you guys saw me talking about Solana back then? I want to say it was like April 15th or something. You can go back in the pro signals and find that post. I know there's probably a lot of Solana fans here with me right now. As far as other altcoins, you guys, some that I'm holding would be obviously Ethereum. I don't even really consider that an altcoin. That's basically right up there with Bitcoin, in my opinion. It's been around forever. And as well, I've really been liking, one of the only issue I ever had with Ethereum in the past. Actually, I should bring up an Ethereum chart too. I'm going to use Bing just because that's what I personally trade on. Yeah, how is this looking right now? Here's one of those times where, let me just zoom in, double check that. Yeah, so after we had this low, lower low, that's our lower high. Obviously, you know where I'm going with this. If we pull a Fibonacci, that's our high point. Look at that. We get our beautiful Stuber fib pocket pull, and never quite made it to TP2. TP1 easily, and depending, I always front run my targets a little bit as well, but whether or not I would have hit that, it's tough to say. But I wasn't in any leverage positions on that or anything, just bringing up, showing how these structure breaks work and how reliable they are. And even if, as I was talking about before, it's so much better to be at getting in at these lower fib levels than to be FOMOing in at the top, right? Because especially if you're using leverage, then your stop loss is that much closer. But yeah, Ethereum still looking not so bad as well on this is the 1 hour. Love to see that we're respecting that level. But yeah, as I mentioned, Ethereum, one of my altcoins. The only problem I really had with it was the gas fees. And I know we're all probably familiar with that. Last market cycle, I remember one time I was trying to buy some shit coin on Uniswap, and I ended up having 3 failed transactions. And it was something like I ended up paying over $500 in gas fees in those 3 transactions, and I never got fuck all for it. That really rubbed me the wrong way, and honestly, I quit using Ethereum DeFi after that. But recently, with, you know, other L2s, like Base Network is one that I've been using, the fees are so cheap. The other day I did like 10 transactions on the Base Network, and I think the most expensive gas fee I had was like 3 cents. So I no longer have issues with Ethereum. As far as I'm concerned, they fixed what my problem was. So obviously, there's different coins available on those different networks and that sort of thing. But I like Ethereum again, so I do hold Ethereum again. So Ethereum, Solana, Near Protocol is another one. It's been a very good performer this cycle. I don't know. I think I got in around $2.30 or something. Let's bring up BingX. Yeah, we're at like $7.50. This one has been a beautiful runner this market cycle. Just obviously we had some sort of a massive falling wedge, and after we broke that, I mean, it was just off to the races from there. Actually, something that I want to point out as well. I'm just curious if it did. Actually, we did technically. Okay, we wouldn't have got a Stuber fib pullback there. Because there we never actually had a break. We never broke a higher low at that point. So when we actually did, ooh, that would have been way back here. So when did we break that level? Yeah, basically. Yeah, we never even came close to getting a Stuber fib pullback. And so on. Oh, phone call. Just going to silence that. But either way, we had this beautiful falling wedge here, broke out. I know, kind of like diagonal trend lines, right? Not everybody loves trading chart patterns. I personally do, but I'm just I'm very strict with having exact touch points and that sort of thing, seeing the retests. And as we can see, I mean, we had some beautiful touch points. This is on a daily chart, so very, very accurate. And then flipping that resistance into support and kind of starting to flatten out and then absolutely blowing up to the upside. So Near has been performing absolutely beautifully this cycle. So that's another one of my holds. One that isn't doing so hot, it was, and obviously, and of course I never did end up selling up there, but Eng was another one. It's been around for a long time. I still haven't lost hope in it or anything like that, but we had basically kind of the same thing, right? Just a bit of a falling wedge trend line here, very accurate touch points, and then flipping that resistance into support absolutely beautifully. This, on the other hand, did absolutely get a Stuber fib pullback, because I think where I started buying it was somewhere around here. I know we were talking about it in my stream one day. Somebody in the group had pointed it out to me, and I looked it up and I saw what he was seeing. But basically we had not only a retest of this beautiful trend line here, but you know where I'm going with this. Just looking where we pulled back to. Look at that. Would you just look at it? Absolutely beautiful. Basically pinpoint accurate to the 786. So just goes to show, you know, whether it's Bitcoin, altcoins, meme coins, total trash coins, so many things respect those fibs, and that's why I like them so much. I know a lot of people prefer the 618. I just find that so often, even if the 618 is going to hold candle body support, there's so often that you see at least a wick down to the 786. And yeah, obviously it's not going to happen every time, but it just tightens up your invalidation levels that much more and that sort of thing. So that being said, I guess we're coming back down towards those levels now. I always give most credit. Oh yeah, we're in that pocket right now. I personally give most credit to the Stuber fibs personally on the first test, and obviously they're the hardest to spot ahead of time like that, but obviously after and honestly I overlook them sometimes too, so you know, they are hard to point out ahead of time sometimes, but then once you start to see them, you just see them more and more. But I personally like the first ones first because so often you see at least some sort of a test of those levels like what we got back here. And obviously this would have looked a little different. As I mentioned, it was more something like that. But as soon as we get our first test there, you almost always get some sort of a reaction at those levels. And after it gets tested more and more, obviously you have the chance, you know, as you test support more and more, although it is support until broken, it just becomes a little bit weaker, right? So something to consider there. So if we, now that we're back at these levels, I don't know. Yes, I love that we are holding this pocket beautifully. But it's just, you know, something to be mindful of that we have tested this area a lot. That being said, obviously that means that we do have structure here, right? So as long as we are holding this box, it doesn't look so bad in my opinion. Invalidation, when I'm looking at these longer time frames, obviously they can be so far away, but yeah, Eng not looking so bad, but that's one of my bag holds. Ultra's another one. I'm gonna skip over some of my own just because running out of time here and I want to start checking some of your guys' stuff. All right, what were some other ones I was going to look at? Simon, I will look up Arc M, and this was on MEXC, you say? Oh, that was quite the pumperoonie. What did it get? Something like almost like a 7x? Yeah, around a 7x. That is huge. You know, something that I like here is it does look like it's just staircasing higher again. Just looking at basic market structure. And again, guys, all these coins I basically haven't looked at. I've never seen this one in my life. So, but just from a structure point of view, you know, we did technically have this low. This was technically a lower low, lower low. That would be our lower high. We end up breaking that level, right? So, kind of invalidated this immediate downtrend is all. Something to watch for is obviously since we did lose this level, we could end up seeing some sort of resistance at the super fib pockets if we do come up a little bit higher. There's a few levels of resistance up ahead, but so far we are just trending to the upside. Just so often when we set an important resistance level like this and see such a reaction, it wouldn't be all too crazy to expect us to test these levels a few times before carrying on higher, right? So just something to watch for as we approach those levels. But as far as this immediate downtrend, like I said, we ended up invalidating the downtrend. Then we end up, so here we have a high, higher high. That means we have a higher low down here. So as long as we hold above this level at this point, in my opinion, it's not looking so bad. If we end up, let's say this daily candle ends up closing above this level here, then we would then have another confirmed higher high, which means we'd have another confirmed higher low. So it would just be staircasing higher and higher. So as it looks right now, I mean, that's what we are getting, right? We're just coming back down to old resistance, basically, and then finding support at those levels. Come back down, finding support right at old resistance here. So I do really like that structure that it's forming at this point. On the daily anyways. I will also check lever quick. And you said BitGet. This is one of those ones that gets a little bit messy, in my opinion, just because we get those wicks going above structure, but we're not seeing like a confident close above. So just something to consider there. I could zoom in a little bit. Let's check the 4-hour chart. As far as the 4-hour chart goes, we did get a close above. And you're going to know where I'm going with this, you guys. After we get that close above, so we have our higher high. That means the lowest point between the two is our higher low. And I think you guys can probably eyeball it at this point of the session as well. Boom. Look at that. Absolutely beautiful. TP1, TP2. See what happens with the rest, right? Was this actually a close above as well? It was. So then once again, you guys, new structure, high, higher high. Lowest point between the two, be looking at something like that. So far, it's being front run. So, you know, maybe we do pull back to those levels. We're going to have to see, I guess. But yeah, doesn't look so bad. Basically, unfortunately, with something like this, when we have this big of market structure, obviously that means invalidation is a substantial percentage away. If we were to lose this type of structure, I mean, that's a 50% correction of the downside. So it really depends what kind of time frames you're looking at. Obviously, larger time frames like this, they are very large percentages, especially in altcoins and lower cap altcoins. I don't know what the market cap is of this, but just something to be a little cautious of. I know I had agreed to look at WIF. Dog WIF hat. Yeah, what can we see here? Well, I can almost guarantee I see a Stuber fib already, but it's already played out. Just looking at the structure after we ended up. Here's one of those times, again, you guys, just talking about how, you know, marking out where those swings happen and that sort of thing. So we did technically have this high and we set a higher high. There's our low between the two. And notice what happens when that structure breaks. And also just notice where we end up seeing that initial reaction or rejection rather, right? Basically that higher low structure basically flipping into resistance and rejecting the trend there. I don't think we got a Stuber fib quite there. No, got front run a little bit. But where I do think that we saw another one would be right here. So we would have had our low, lower low, lower low, lower high. Got our close above that. And let's just see what happened from there. If we pull, looking at structure, very close to a Stuber fib pull there. But I was actually referring to this one. And it actually did get tagged there. And so did TP1 and 2. My blue fibs. So nice to see. At this point, yeah, we're seeing a little bit of resistance at the top of the range that we already had. We're not seeing a crazy rejection. In fact, it looks like we broke the immediate downtrend, just kind of like what I was looking at with Bitcoin on the smaller time frames there. So it's kind of looking the same right now. So this thing may be ready to grow some legs again, but this is also one of those times we do have to be careful again, right? Because technically the top of this range would be mapped out because of the highest point between this, right? Just because that's where we lost that swing and started a downswing there. So we do have to consider the possibilities of finding resistance from that point. So even if we do get a pump, just be aware of some of these levels up above is all. I think largely it'll depend on how Bitcoin is acting in the market. Generally speaking, if Bitcoin's doing well, altcoins are doing better. If Bitcoin's in the shitter, then altcoins are just getting hammered on. So something to consider there. But as it looks for the shorter time frame, it does look like it's trying to find support, just kind of trending to the upside again. But we do have resistance up ahead, but that's still quite a ways away. I mean, from where we are right now, as long as we can break this resistance, I mean, that's a 35% move to the upside to that Stuber fib pocket if we are to get there. What else was I going to look at? AVAX. That was one of the first requested. Sorry to keep you waiting. Which chart do I want? I'll go with Binance. What do we have here? Unfortunately, no candle bodies closing above this level here. Really would have liked to see that. I mean, we did technically get a pullback into those fibs, but this is one of those times where we never really had the break in structure first, because I would have loved to see, rather than just these wicks above this level, I would have loved to see these candle bodies just close a little bit higher, in which case I would have been a little more confident in calling this a Stuber fib. Obviously, it still worked out, but it's just not how I like to look at the structure of them when I'm pulling them is all. Because anyone can pull a Fibonacci, right? But there's just certain ways that I do pull it to confirm my entries, basically. I'm looking for those structure breaks and then hoping to get that pullback kind of a thing, right? So what about some sort of a downtrend? Actually, AVAX, this is interesting, actually. This is just at an eyeball. Let's see. Like I was talking about with chart patterns, I like exact touch points. Whew, that is a fairly accurate trend line right there. Starting here, touch there, touch there, touch there. So more than 3 touch points, even found support on that level there. That's nice to see. The only thing to consider here, and this is kind of the downside with looking at chart patterns like this, is, I mean, yes, we immediately flip that resistance into support, but there's nothing saying that we won't test it again, in which case we could see a lot lower prices. But so far, we did break out of that. Ideally, I mean, it is supposed to be a bullish pattern. Obviously, chart patterns, I mean, to each your own. But technically speaking, a downward sloping trend break like that is generally bullish. So again, we could just look for even some sort of a Fibonacci if we were, after getting that breakout, maybe come back down and test these levels. If we start seeing support, seeing indicators agreeing with support at these levels, divergences, hidden divergences, regular divergences, anything like that in the indicators, then it might be a good buy opportunity at these levels. As it stands right now, it's trying to break above this little downtrend here, but it is still struggling. It's just wicking above so far, so we'll have to see what happens there. Let's see. Did I miss any? Oh, WIF was supposed to be on a 5-minute. Hey, what was I looking at? Well, whatever. Actually, now I am curious. I'll look at WIF on a 5-minute quick, because I skipped over that. Whoops. 5-minute. It hasn't... This is very freestyle once again. Technically, so we would have had a break above this, followed by a break above this, which would mean the highest confirmed low would be down here. So we're actually getting close to a Stuber fib territory there. Be looking at something like so. Actually, that's right where we are right now. I've never traded this coin personally, and I don't know, to me it almost looks like this is such a little mess of clutter. I don't know if I want to consider that the higher low. I mean technically yes, but I'm just wondering if it's going to respect kind of this sort of structure a little bit more. I mean, we'll have to see. If I'd feel better about it if, let's say, now that it actually just set a slightly lower low. So here we got a lower high. If we get some sort of a candle body close above something like that, that's where I'd be looking for a smaller Stuber fib, because right now we kind of have something like this. I would actually like to see us break this little downtrend and then find an even smaller Stuber fib kind of a thing. But so far, I mean, that is a potential bounce area. I've just never, I've never played with that coin. And some coins do act different as well, right? Like some respect different Fibonacci's differently and stuff. Generally speaking, I have a lot of luck with the 786, 886, but I don't even know. I assume at this point you can trade this one with leverage. Hey, this is a leverage pair. Yeah, never mind. That's a perpetuals pair. I'm scared of altcoins with leverage, honestly, you guys. This is something that I've talked about in my streams quite often as well, is that when you're trading altcoins, and WIF might actually have some good trading volume and whatnot because it is quite popular, but I have got burned on trading altcoins before with leverage just because the order books are a lot thinner. There's a lot less trading volume. One example that really rings a bell, and a lot of you guys have heard this already, is I was trading some coin on MEXC the one day. I was using 20x leverage. I was sitting at something like a 30% profit, and my stop loss was actually in a 5% profit, and my position got liquidated. It never got stopped out. It got liquidated, even though my stop loss was in a profit. And that's something that has really stuck with me until this day. Why, when it comes to leverage, I usually stick to Bitcoin, to be honest. In my opinion, using altcoins with leverage is just like using Bitcoin with more leverage. You know, it's kind of the same thing, in my opinion. Just Bitcoin has more stable volume and stuff like that. Let me catch up on a few messages here, you guys. Oh, this is one that I promised to check out. True on MEXC. Truflation. Oh boy, I can already tell you, I don't know if this is a leverage pair or not. I can tell you I'd be terrified to trade it with leverage just because of how gappy it is there. As far as, ooh, that was a beautiful Stuber fib if I were a betting man, and I definitely am. This is one of those times where, hey, we had a big structure point up here. We broke above those levels. If we pull a Fibonacci from down here up to where the price had topped out on that rally, yeah, look at that. Absolutely beautiful. If you would have been laddering in at the 786, 886, I mean, got a beautiful blast off from that launch pad. TP1 already hit. So as far as a Stuber setup goes, I mean, there's that to consider. You'd be getting in late now if you were to buy something like that. TP2 just up here for how I do it. But yeah, as far as structure goes, I mean, the downtrend on this little rally here, or not rally, this little dump here, that trend looks to have been broken in my opinion. Let's zoom out a little bit. On the 4 hour, it is a little bit messy. Again, it's one of those things where, yes, we had these candle bodies technically closing above these highs here. But we do have that wick in the middle, and just, I don't know, maybe it's just me being picky, but whenever I see wicks kind of getting in the way like that, it almost invalidates it to me just because it's a less clear picture. I'm not saying at all that this isn't bullish, but just it just becomes a little bit more messy, a little bit less clear, right? So it's hard to say what's going to happen here. I do like that I can also see, let me just clean things up a little bit. You know, it looks like we had some sort of a wedge. I could be wrong. Something like that would have been a wedge. Obviously, it came down, kept kind of going down. Seems like a bit of a rounding bottom now. I'd feel a lot better if, you know, we got a confident close above these highs back here. In that case, then we'd have a new confirmed low, I guess, at that point. At least a new confirmed low for a new range, right? But yeah, I've never heard of that coin. I don't know what the fundamentals are behind it. I don't know if it even trades on leverage, anything like that. What's another one we had here? Gear on BitGet. Yeah, that looks like it may have recently had a Stuber fib as well. Again, just looking at this kind of a structure break. Then we pull our fibs. Yeah, look at that, right into the pocket there. Absolutely phenomenal. Basically filled it perfectly. I'm curious, how many of you guys, I know a lot of you guys have been in the group for a long time. I know the term Stuber fibs is thrown around a lot these days. How many of you guys use them? And honestly, I wouldn't mind feedback, because obviously we might look at them slightly differently, and especially after you see me go through so many examples today and the actual structure breaks that I look for and how I actually pull them. Maybe it's slightly different than what you've been doing, but have you found them helpful? I know I've seen a lot of people have really liked them. It's just such a nice structured way of such a structured setup, I guess. And just like anything, guys, obviously they're not always going to play out. Like right here. I mean, well, actually, no, never mind. That wasn't one. Trying to microanalyze one, but I proved myself wrong in my head real quick. But yeah, beautiful setups. Honestly, my favorite setups. Let's see what the indicators are saying. It looks like we're trying to flip this sell signal and trying to get back above it. But yeah. What other coins were there? I can take a look at just a couple more here, guys. We're starting to run a little long, which is fine, but it just takes a while to upload, and I know we all have places to be. Since I like base, do I like arrow? Never used it, to be honest. I assume that's another network similar to base, like just another Ethereum network. I think I've heard the name, I've just never used it. VELO. Yes. What time frame? Like them using spot with them. Yeah, honestly, like, especially when using spot. I mean, the thing is, guys, you can always fine tune things a little bit, especially with leverage. I mean, let's say rather than Stuber fibs, you know what a safer approach is actually looking for swing fail patterns and stuff like that, because then your invalidation's tightened up even more, but you're obviously going to have a lot less setups, right? So it depends what your risk tolerance is. But especially when it comes to spot buying, like I said earlier, I treat my spot positions a lot different than my leverage positions, and I'm really not as worried about my risk when it comes to spot. So yeah, I mean, buying at a 786 retrace, if it's something I'm looking at holding for a mid to long term trend anyways, beautiful pullbacks for spot buying. Ooh, loving how this indicator looks on VELO. As far as this is the 4 hour, I know I will take a look at the daily right away, but just since I'm on the 4 hour, and it just looks absolutely phenomenal. I love that. This is what I was talking about earlier, you guys, noticing which way these signals are trending. Like for example, not so much, I mean, yeah, obviously this was a phenomenal buy signal, but it's just risky on its own, right? But then when you notice that, hey, we have a higher buy signal, and look what happened from there. Same thing, just another beautiful move to the upside. CW's trending to the upside again. See this buy trend curling to the upside. Obviously, trends break eventually. They always do. No trend can go on forever. Well, actually, that's not true. It can, but generally speaking, trends reverse eventually. But as it stands right now, liking how the indicators look right there. Let's actually get rid of these ones, bring up the core trend. See, that's another one of those things I was talking about with just noticing when it's flipping green higher, right? So down here, we obviously let's say starting back here, we have this buy signal, or support signal rather. Then we get a higher support flip, higher support flip. So you kind of see why I mentioned that when I'm looking at these indicators. So it's not, I mean, and same thing with looking at the opposite, right? We have the resistance band here, higher resistance. Well, it never worked out as if you would have tried to take a short based on that, right? But you're fighting the trend because this one's higher. Same with this one here. Yeah, it worked immediately, but it never held. It quickly flipped bullish again. Same with here, right? I mean, if you're trying to short based on that signal, it's just not necessarily going to work out because it's a higher signal. So yeah, interesting to see that. Absolutely beautiful. Looking at basic market structure on a naked chart on the 4 hour. I'll start with the 4 hour here, just because I see these levels. And then I'll zoom out to the daily and see if it kind of agrees. But yeah, obviously we had a high, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. And this right here, this candle is only wicking above. It's not closing above. So I'm not really willing to consider this a higher low yet myself, just because I like to see those closes. But yeah, as long as we hold this level, basically, that's looking all right. Let me zoom out to the day. Oh, that's beautiful. That's a very obvious one. Obviously set a higher high. We have a confirmed higher low. I would actually go back to this structure back here just for a little extra wiggle room. And since this is all so close here, rather than pulling my fibs from here, I'd probably just pull from here instead. So, that being said, on the daily, I'd be looking at something like this currently. Some sort of a retrace would not necessarily be unhealthy. It could be totally normal, but it kind of depends how we approach that level too, right? Generally, when we're coming down to support, you don't want to see it just go like this to support, because that's showing some sort of panic, some sort of capitulation, whatever you want to call it. What I like to see is us get down near those support levels and starting to kind of, approaching it, slowing down with the aggression. Some sort of a rounding bottom would be beautiful, or just, just slowly and reasonably approaching those levels in a controlled manner rather than just nuking right to it. If we just nuke right to it, yeah, absolutely, we could get an immediate reversal, but I think it would just be showing a lot of strength on the selling side, and I'd be less likely to take that position in that case. But that daily structure looks beautiful, though. No doubt about it. That is a beautiful daily close. What are the indicators saying on the daily? Well, as I was talking about with the core trend, I mean, it's clear as day here. Flipped bullish higher, flipped bullish higher, flipped bullish higher, flipped bullish higher. It never even really got bearish here. It just flipped neutral, if anything. Never even flipped red. But yeah, you can see that every time that it flips green higher, it's just, again, pointing out an absolutely beautiful trend with that indicator. Let's turn off the core trend, check these indicators. Same thing here. As I mentioned earlier, we got W's trending to the upside. Up, 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 up. As well as this buy signal. And this was basically a double bottom buy signal. So take it for what it is. It wasn't higher, but it was definitely a beautiful call there. Yeah. What else? What are my settings? On which indicators? Or my fibs? Settings on which? Trend dynamic, I actually have very limited. I think the only thing I have is candle color, just because I really like how it looks, and reversal warnings. That's all I have on the trend dynamic, so that's just the W's. I like to keep my charts fairly clean. generally speaking, so I don't have a lot on there. Most of what you're seeing here would be the trend collection, and all I did there is I selected scalp mode and I checked enable. So any time frame I go on, it's automatically choosing the settings for me. That's all I've done. Basically, default setting there on scalp enable. How's Bitcoin doing? It looks like it's nuking a little bit. Yeah, still dumping a little bit. How's it looking as far as fib pull goes? We're still approaching those fib boxes there. I don't really want to stay on here too much longer, you guys. I gotta go eat eventually here. We've been here for an hour and a half. I see a lot of people had to leave because it's late for a lot of people, and a lot of people have things to do and stuff. But yeah, I kind of want to see what happens here though too. I think I'm done looking at altcoins for now. I might mention one or two more in passing here, but basically just going to babysit this for a couple minutes. I'll probably wrap up soon here. What else? I don't know. Are any of you guys into NFTs at all? I know not everybody is, and honestly, I barely am either. But one that caught my attention recently, someone in the group was actually talking about it, was CHONK. This is one of those very small market cap coins, like $358,000 market cap. This is one of those degen meme small cap coins that I've been accumulating. And my reason for that is they're just, one thing that's slightly different with them is it's kind of an NFT coin hybrid. And I actually minted some NFTs with them on their, it's called Thick or Thickums. I minted a few NFTs with them, and I have owned NFTs in the past, and I've had them for sale basically ever since. And that has been half a year, if not longer, where basically none of my other NFTs have sold. Whereas the way they've done it is you can lock up your NFT into, well, I shouldn't even say lock up, but you can throw it into their tank, the CHONK tank or the Thick tank, depending which NFTs you have. And then you can take out, basically you replace your NFT with their coins. And then it's very easy to basically be swapping NFTs and stuff. I know, for example, I had a bunch of those Thickums minted, and I liked some other ones that were for sale more than mine. So I just swapped some of mine for the coins, and then I just bought the NFTs that I liked more. So they have a set value in the coins. You're not trying to sell them for a certain amount or anything. That's the unique part, right? Is it's a set amount, so it actually kind of ties the coin value and the floor value of the NFTs together. And it's just I just used it the other day for the first time to actually see how it worked. And I was actually pretty impressed with how easy it was. I've never been an NFT guy myself, and they confused the hell out of me personally. But I was pretty happy with how easy I was able to, sell the ones I didn't want, buy ones that I did want, and how quick it was. Whereas normal NFTs, you kind of have to wait for a buyer and that sort of thing. So I thought that was actually quite interesting. So you know what? I was willing to throw a few bucks at this kind of a project, and I have been accumulating a little bit. Yeah, it's definitely down, and you know what? They're active on Twitter and that sort of thing. Super small market cap, very high risk, obviously, you guys. Not financial advice. This is one of those things that's very high risk, but yeah, I like what they're doing. Their other token, Thick, as I mentioned. This is the one tied to the NFTs that I have. And again, obviously it's low, but it's holding some sort of a support. So if I were to look for a fib pull, I mean, I don't know how much analysis actually matters on this kind of a thing, but we got very close to the 786. So I've just been scooping up a little bit of both of them. This one's market cap's only 120K. So like I said, high risk, very small market caps sort of a thing. But you guys were asking about what shit coins I'm into, so there's a couple of them. Anyways, guys. Oh yeah. Oh wow. Even since we took off, that daily candle's moving a little bit. So yeah. anyways, any last minute questions, you guys? Other than that, I think I am about good to wrap up here. So as always, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. I always appreciate having you guys here and going through my thought process. I think that's all I wanted to go over. So hopefully you guys found this stream useful. For those of you guys watching this on my YouTube channel a little later, if you are interested in my favorite indicators, plus access to the VIP Discord with live streams such as these put on by not only myself, but also a handful of other very knowledgeable traders in the group, as well as if you need access to a no KYC exchange to get your degen on. I have a couple of links in the description down below for discounts and so on. And with that, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Peace.